Howdy folks, Little John. I'm out in the brewery on a bloody another miserable winter's day, but hey, I'm at the right end of the day. Work's done, so that's a positive. But now, before I get into this, I want to acknowledge the 1st of July, dry July, in pure fashion of celebrating the cause. We're going to sit down and drink some beers. All those guys at home, the ladies, the non-binary, whoever, that are at home, that are partaking in dry July, raising money for cancer and awareness and all that stuff. Thumbs up and good on you. Hope you get through, and look forward to some beers when you get to the end. But for the rest of us, life continues, and we carry on. So first thing we want to do is let's see first video of the month, which means Patreon draw. Prize time for one of the lucky Patreons. I'll let you know a secret while I'm here. The package for last month's Patreon draw is still sitting here on the table. It's packed up and ready to go. It took me a little while to get around to it. Yeah, Mick, I'm sorry, it is coming. It's in a post, it's ready to go. We've had a little bit of a temporary lockdown here in, even though we're not in the city, we're in the regional area. I've been sick and whatnot, and flown on from that, so they will go in the mail very soon, and along with that will be the lucky winner of today's draw, who I haven't exactly picked out what they're going to get, but probably going to be some yeast, some hops, maybe a grain bag, hot bag or two. We'll see what happens. But anyway, they're their lucky winner, Kane Canuta. Well done, mate. You are the lucky Patreon for the month. Prize will be coming your way in the sometime in the future. Anyway, all the Patreons, guys, thank you very much for your support. It's incredibly appreciated. Keeps the channel going, particularly doing these sort of experiments. If you're interested, check out down the bottom the link there. See what Patreon's about. There's a little bit extra there for the Patreons. Subscribers, thank you. Hit the subscribe button if you aren't subscribed. But if you're watching, hit the like button while we're going. Let's get on with what we're here for today. Drinking beer, talking beer. Beer we brewed before. Anyway, what I'm looking at today is what I call the water of life. The experiment with kit beer. And is there a difference between tap water or spring water, or yeah, basically just using water that's got nothing in it. So avoiding the main thing that we were really trying to avoid in this is the chlorines that are in tap water in town supply. You see it discussed quite a lot. People talk about some of the off flavours that you can get in kit beers, and a lot of people like to attribute a whack of that to your water, saying that the chlorine or chloramine or fluoride or things that are in your town water, that are things that are added to it, are causing problems within the beer. Now, it's probably an experiment I've thought about doing for a number of years. And every time I sort of got around to it, I sort of thought, yeah, what's the point? Water chemistry is generally the realm of the all-grain brewer, where you are using your water to interact with your grains, and you're trying to avoid, you're trying to get your water chemistry to a certain level. So chlorine is one thing you want out of it. With kit beers, the base of your beer's already been mashed, so you're only adding water to top it up. So a lot of what gets thrown around is this concept that if your tap water is good enough to drink, then it's good enough to make beer with. Now, an interesting concept. You know, if you can drink your water out of the tap and it doesn't have any real nasty flavours and stuff, then I suppose there's a reason to believe it's not going to bring any nasty flavours over into your beer. But there's chemicals and minerals in that water, and are they having an effect? Are they interacting with the extract in the tin and the process and the yeast to make a different sort of a flavour? So I thought, well, hang it, it's time to do it. Let's get this experiment done. So I have 2 beers here in front of me. I don't know which one is which. And I don't particularly want to know. So I'm just going to bloody get into them and then have a bit of a think about how they taste, what they compare like, and then have a look at which beer is which. Now, these were done with the Beer Maker's Lager, which is a pommy kit. These are the kits I got cheap from Kegland. We've got them to do a bunch of experiments. Yeah, I'm going to have a look at a few, but exactly how it was brewed in a minute. I just want to get a taste on these first, just to sort of get an idea in my head of where each beer sits before I cloud my judgment by knowing actually what beer is what. So what we're trying to find is, is there a discernible difference? Does using town water or not using town water how does it influence your beer? Does it make a difference? And I've gone for the plain lager kit because I'm hoping it's going to have less flavours and things that are going to hide any of the differences. This beer on your right looks a tad darker, but I think by memory I sort of did botch the split a little bit on these. I will say off the bat, I think I've come with before, I don't think this kit makes a particularly good beer. They were getting old. I think they're actually out of date now, so I've commented this before. I've probably brewed lots of feed myself where I've actually, by using that kit, I've possibly made the comparison a little bit more difficult. Okay. Righto. Now, before I pull the book out and have a look at the differences and how we went along, I'm going to say straight off the top, this beer on the left, your right, has a more defined edgy toffee note. Very much along the lines of what you'd normally start referring to as kick twang. It's not, again, I'm not going to try to explain exactly how it feels, because that twang can be a little bit different, but it's almost a, you know, rusty can metallic kind of a note. With this one on your left is a little bit cleaner. There's still some of that, yeah, weird little kit flavour there in this one. But it's definitely more noticeable in that fella. So, that being said, let's have a look at what's what. So, as I said, Brewmaker's Lager. I split, the idea was to have 200 grams of Dex, 300 grams of wheat malt in each half of the brew and ferment that. You know, fermented with Nottingham, 19 degrees, 1 packet of each, which should come out reasonably, you know, should be reasonably clean, should be having a real impact on, yeah, on the flavour a hell of a lot. I do remember, if you go back and have a look at the Brew Day video, I did stuff up and I put a little bit too much of the tin into the first fermenter. So on the second I added just a little bit more light dry malt to try and bring it up to the same sort of place. Now, the one with the extra malt was the spring water, and I was trying to bring it down. The reason I went for the 150 extra malt was because I actually put more water in when I added the water and topped it up. It was a bit of a fuck up, but overall it's not a real big difference. And I don't think that difference in flavour has anything to do with the malt itself. You know, it's a background, it's an underlying note that's different. So, one was done with tap water, one was done with spring water. It was Tasmanian mountain spring water. Now, obviously spring water is going to have some minerals in it. It's not going to have chlorine, it's not going to have fluoride, which are our main issues. You can't, for all intents and purposes, you can't get a much cleaner water than out of the bloody, you know, the fucking mountains of bloody Tasmania, for God's sakes. But anyway, that's where we were. So, tap water version started at 1038. The spring water version started at 1040, which was just adding a little bit of dry malt. Now, ferment wise, check what's what. Okay. Alright. The spring water, the ferment started quicker. After 24 hours, the tap water had not moved. It was the same gravity. Gravity hadn't moved in 24 hours. At the same time, the spring water brew had dropped 6 points of gravity. Now, what that says to me is that, if nothing else, initially the chlorine in the water is potentially having some sort of issue with the yeast. They're stopping the yeast from getting up and going and doing its thing. Whether that's necessarily a bad thing or not, who knows? But there is clearly there's a big difference. 6 points using the same yeast in essentially the same wort. 6 points is a huge difference. I generally don't get any more than 1 or 2 points at most difference between a side-by-side brew, because they're side-by-side and they're essentially the same thing. After that 24 hours though, ferment ticked along pretty much exactly the same. So there was 4 points of gravity difference at the end of 24 hours, and that continued. Day 2, day 3, day 5, with still 4 points gravity difference. Day 7 was the same. So it was ticking along at the same point. At that point we're at 10:16 and 10:20. So it's starting to slow down. We're getting towards the end of ferment. Things are slowing down. Day 8 was a 3 point difference. Day 10 there was 2 points. But we were all but done. It then went for another 5 days after. At that point I didn't check any further gravities. So at that point it had been fermenting for 15 days. Bottled it up. So what we had was the spring water. It started at 10:40, finished at 10:11. So an ABV of 4.3%, including the carb drop. I just carb dropped these. These weren't pressure fermented or anything. And the tap water started at 10:38, finished at 10:10. So it went 1 point lower, but again, 2 point starting difference. So that really means nothing at the end of the day for a 4.2% ABV. So they've started very similar, finished very similar. Ferment just went a little bit faster for the spring water brew. And they continued from there pretty much on par with one another with no great difference. You can see here both beers. Visually the same, they're both holding a decent head. This fella's possibly got a little bit more lacing, but that's, you know, neither here nor there really. So it's made no difference physically. The only thing I can come up with these two brews is, I said, this one just seems to be a little bit cleaner. So there's no great amount of difference. Like, I can't say that one of these beers is supremely better than the other. But I will say that as I'm going, this one is becoming far more drinkable than this. That note in that is getting, you know, harder to drink. And this one, as I get further into it, the more I drink of that, the more this one it's starting to become, you know, cleaner and more drinkable. So the only thing left really is to see which is which. And right now I want to say, and I'm hoping that that fella, which I'm picking up as being a bit cleaner, with less of the twang. I said there's still twang there, there's just less of it. I'm really hoping that's spring water, because well, really it doesn't really matter to me one way or another, and I suppose to a degree I'd probably prefer that was the tap water, because then it'd mean that, you know, we can just make beer out of our taps with no questions. But anyway, let's have a look. So, beer on my left, you're right. The lesser of the lesser quality of the two, for me. Says 22. It's got an equals on the side, which is the tap water brew. And just to confirm that we're right on the other side, that should be 22x, and it is. That's spring water. Okay, so I'm not completely surprised that it is different, but as I said, there's always a part of me that was sort of had this hope and belief that it wouldn't have made a difference. I did hope that the tap water wasn't going to taste any different, but from this experiment, and I said this, you know, and this is very limited, it's very restricted, and there's going to be plenty of people, as always. You're going to put up on only one person. There's no triangle testing, blah blah bloody blah. I understand all that, and as I said, every time I do a side by side in the tasting, this is simply my interpretation of how these beers have turned out. I didn't know which beer was which going in when I was drinking them. I had nothing either way to gain from one or the other being any better, and I didn't know which one was going to be which. But to me, right now, certainly says to me, there is an argument, and it's supporting the argument, that tap water does have some effect on that kick twang and the weird flavours that you can get from a kit beer. So from this, I've got to say that I would recommend using not necessarily spring water, but at the very least taking steps to remove at least the chlorine from your tap water before adding it to your kit beers. A lot of brewers were out there, we're brewing to save money. It's not, you know, doing things cheaper is quite often very high on the list of things you want to achieve with your beer, and I get that. So from that end, if you are the brewer who doesn't want to go and spend, you know, what? I use the 10 litre box of the that Tasmanian water. I think it's like $6 from Woolies. So you could effectively do a batch for about $12. You could buy 2 cartons. You might need an extra litre to get you to your total of 23 litres. So it's not a big outlay, but it is an outlay that some brewers aren't going to want to make. So I'd certainly suggest that if you are in that category, get your water out the night before, the day before. Get it in bottles. Leave it with the bottle. Leave it in the bottles with the cap loose, so it can breathe. The oxygen come off. Stick your water into a big stock pot or bucket or whatever it is you've got. Put in your fermenter overnight with the lid off. You know, just throw a towel over it or something. So if you worry about getting crud getting in it. But let that air breathe, let that oxygen come, let that chlorine come off. Look at Campden tablets. Vitamin C powder, calcium sorbate powder, it works, it gets rid of, and it's more recommended for chloramine, and I tend to use a little bit of both when I'm trying to get rid of crap out of my tap water. I will use calcium sorbate, and I also use, I'm now starting to use Campden tablets as well, so I can attack either chlorine or chloramine in the water. So take the steps, get rid of it, because it's another little part of the puzzle. And that's exactly what all these experiments that little John that I'm doing, this is what they're all about. You know, each little thing along the way is a little improvement, which on their own aren't a lot, but together, you know, go a long way. And by that I mean yeast, temperature control, you know, adequate fermentation time, adequate storage and conditioning, the water we're using, chemicals to treat your water. They're all little things. They all add a little bit to your, you know, they might add, some will add a little bit of cost to your brew. Some will add some time to your brew. Some will add a little bit more work to your brew. But each one of them will improve your brew. And if you add those 5, you know, 4 or 5 little things into each brew, your final brew is a long way from your alternative. Right? But as always, it's up to you at home to decide what level you're willing to work at, how much effort and money you're willing to put in. This one, seriously, is a fucking no-brainer though, because it doesn't cost you anything. All you've got to get water out. Whenever you're brewing, you've got to get your water out. You've got to fucking measure it. You've got to pour it into something. You've got to move it into your fermenter. Just do it the fucking night before. Let the chlorine come off. Yeah. You don't need to boil it. You don't need to fucking play around with it. Just pour it into your containers. Let the containers sit overnight. Let that chlorine leach off. And hopefully it will make some difference in your beer. So if you are at home just using pure tap water, I think the time has come where we need to start taking some steps to eradicate that. I certainly, from this, as something I'm certainly going to be incorporating more into my kit beers. There will be a little bit more effort put into, or at least making sure that I'm taking some steps to get rid of that chlorine out of the water instead of just topping up straight out of the fucking tap and going straight away. Because there's 2 beers there, and the only difference between them is that one's been made with bloody tap water and one's not. And I prefer to drink the one that's not made with tap water. That's all I need. So, as always, comments, questions down the bottom. Go for your life. Ask away. Stick them up there. Do you use tap water? Do you not use tap water? Do you use treated water? Tell us about it. Tell us why. Yeah, maybe you've experienced the same thing. As always, Patreons, guys, again, thank you very much. Kane, stuff's coming your way, mate. Cheers for your support, guys. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. If you're still here, you must be liking something that's going on. Hit the fucking like button. You've only got to hit it once. It's fucking easy. Just click on it. Bang. Simple. Anyway, guys, that's me, Little John. I'm out of here. So, till see you next time. We're brewing beer. Talking beer. We're drinking beer. Good brewing.